Today we will be joined by 4 special guests to recap the Wolf PAC Musical Madness Bracket Round 1. I am your host, Sarah, a person who has never watched an episode of SportsCenter, but sure does know her way around a Broadway musical. All right, let's get started. All right, and here we are with our 4 expert panelists. We're going to start up in the top left. We do have Heather here. She is a Wolf PAC parent and our current co-president of Parent of the Pack. Underneath her, we have Laura. She is a current Wolf PAC staff member, teaching artist, and director. At the bottom of our screen here, we have Tori. She is a Wolf PAC alum, class of 2016. And then circling back up, we have Tim, a former Wolf PAC staff member and director of many of the shows in question. Thank you so much for being here, panelists. It is so exciting to have you.
Yeah, thank you for having us.
Perfect. So we're going to start right off here. I just want to do a little recap of our brackets as they stand right now. Let's start off with our initial reactions to the bracket. Can you tell me a little bit about what you thought about those pinups? Any initial upsets that you saw in round 1?
Frozen. I can't believe Frozen. Like, do you want to build a snowman? Sisters?
I cannot name a single Addams Family song. So I agree with
you
that.
know, the thing about it,
Frozen. Right now, Wolf PAC is doing Frozen.
It's true, but unfortunately, it's a 3rd through 5th grade show, and those little guys, they're just not on the social media yet. So
yeah, but you know what they are on? They're on their talents and their skills.
Aww, they are. I know if I could get all my cast to vote, they would vote for Frozen.
Oh my God. And
sure. Big upset.
An army. They're a small army because there are so gosh darn many of them.
There are.
That is fair.
They're devoted and talented.
Well, tell me though, one of the things that I noticed right off the bat was Children of Eden versus Shrek. It was neck and neck. Shrek won by 1 vote. I was shocked because that to me is the lesser known musical. What are your thoughts as to why, this older, lesser known musical pulled ahead of
I have many thoughts on this. I mean, this for me was the most difficult. Having been the director for both of these shows, it's literally choosing between my children. For me, I had
Sophie's choice.
Yeah, like a true Sophie's choice. And really what it came down to for me was reflecting on the experience of working on both of them. And when I thought about, Shrek was probably the most fun I think I've ever had at Wolf PAC, whereas Children of Eden I think was the most meaningful. But really, when I think back on my experience of both of them, Shrek gave me the most stress, I'll call it, because it was so technically challenging. So for me, Children of Eden, the only thing that was negative about that for me was the 6-minute long Act 2 opening. Just the worst song.
Generations.
It's the worst.
I was in it in undergrad, so I definitely have a soft spot in my heart for Children of Eden, and I think it is one of those shows. I think it's why it gets the vote. It's one of those shows that just really hits you, impacts you in a way that you never expected, whether you're religious or not. It hits your heart. And so I think that's why a lot of people voted for it.
Yeah, you bring up an interesting point, though, because to me, there's probably a distinct difference as to how people are voting on here, whether they're voting for the show itself. I prefer this show overall versus I'm voting on this based on my experience at Wolf PAC, either being in it, working on it, or seeing it. Tell me a little bit about your thoughts about how you think generally people voted versus also maybe how you voted too in your brackets.
I think it really varied based on, everybody comes at it from their own point of view. So I can just start with mine and then go on to what I thought was the general. Going back to Shrek versus Children of Eden, I was in both of those shows. So for me, that was a really interesting time at Wolf PAC where personally I was moving from being one of the younger kids to one of the older ones. And I think that is one of my favorite things about Wolf PAC, that people of all ages get together to create something really, really wonderful. But I would say on a general level, some people were definitely just voting because it was in their brain all day. And it didn't matter what their personal experience of the show was.
I have a musical background. I play piano and I have 12 years of classical music. So I feel like I have a really good appreciation, songs. I'm not just Frozen, the music, besides the film itself and the special effects, the music, I just thought, and the words and the depth and the key changes in the music. Like when I first saw it, I was like mind blowing. Like it was just so amazing. So the other one too that I really felt strongly about was A Year with Frog and Toad, because I didn't know anything about it. And the Wolf Pack performed it this year. And the songs were so cute and like catchy. And I think for that one, whereas Frozen spoke to me more musically, artistically, the Frog and Toad was just so much fun. And the characters were so cute, and the slapstick, that I was surprised that didn't move on. And I'm a Charlie Brown fan. I love Charlie Brown.
I think it's really impossible to remove your experience of doing it from like the preference of it, right? Like, okay, like let's take Cats, for instance, for me, and think back in the past, like BC, before Cats. I was, as a child, terrified of it. Like the commercial for the video scared me. As a like sassy teen, was like too cool for it. And then Wolfpack hired me to direct and choreograph it with Betsy. And then after it, I was like, well, I love it. I love this thing. But so I can't remove my experience of doing the show with my preference for it.
No, I feel the same way. It's absolutely about a personal connection. And for me, having coming late to the game for a lot of these shows, at least for Wolfpack, but being someone who's done theater since I was in middle school, I have some sort of a connection to so many of these. Plus, with just my family growing up, that was our car ride jams with show tunes. That's all we listened to. I didn't ever listen to any sort of popular music. So for me, I played Annie when I was in 8th grade. So like that was for sure. And I am one of those people who I actually really do like Cats, and everyone can like do it all they want.
Don't feel bad about that.
But the year with Frog and Toad one was really hard because I just directed it, the more recent version that we did, and it's totally one of those shows that you fall in love with, like a Children of Eden. That once you do, you just realize how special it is really well. But I would have loved to see all of these Wolfpack performances and be able to somewhat put a vote towards them because of that. But definitely when I vote, I bring a lot of my own personal experience to the vote, which I imagine most people do, and why I got so passionate about Into the Woods versus Godspell, because Godspell is fine.
That's a tough one too.
There is no show on this bracket that I would not enjoy watching. Not a single one. I love them all.
Tell me this though. We do have two of the same composer up against each other in this coming round. We do have two Stephen Schwartz musicals pitted against each other upcoming in round 2. Now, while they are slightly different in genre, Pippin and Children of Eden, they are going to be similar aesthetics. How do you foresee that playing out?
I mean, I'm Team Children of Eden all the way to the end. That's where my preference lies. However, I will say, this is from me to you all, a little insider info. To me, Pippin was the most beautiful aesthetic show that we did at Wolfpack, I thought. So I do have a soft spot for Pippin, love it dearly, but yeah, I'm a Children of Eden stan, as the kids say.
How do you think the public will react to it, though, having probably not seen either?
Good point, Sarah.
That's why I host
roll the dice, right? Just roll the dice and eeny, meeny, miny, mo.
Either there will be, for me, I imagine that like some people will know like Corner of the Sky, and they'll be like, oh, isn't that from Pippin?
Yeah,
and so then they might just vote for Pippin. It might end up being a low vote. I don't know. We're gonna wait and see.
I
But
think the passion that people showed for Shrek versus Children of Eden, we might see that come out again, especially because it's just, I don't know, I think that it's interesting that a lot of youth productions happen to have some like Judeo-Christian overtones, like, we got Godspell, we got Pippin, we got Children of Eden, all trying to explore these super universal questions about developing your own moral system and what happens when things get thrown in your way, and like, how do you react to those problems? For me personally, like, I don't like Pippin, but Pippin is a little bit more of a like teen adult show for me because of some of the, like finding yourself content there, where I think that Children of Eden, people from all stages of life can relate to that more. So especially just the amount of passion there was for Eden in this round, I think that more people will be prepared to argue as they did on Facebook. I love seeing the arguments on Facebook, and I hope people keep it coming.
Well, it's interesting because theater is a way, that it's like, everyone is so passionate about it that it's wonderful to see these debates, and getting your 4 expert opinions has been really, I think, enlightening for me, and we'll see how that pans out for the rest of our viewers too, moving into round 2. So what I want to leave us with now is I do want to go around the Zoom, if you will, find out if there are any overall predictions moving into round 2, and if there are any shows that you foresee potentially squaring off in our final 2 next week. Why don't we go around? We'll start off top with you, Heather. What are your thoughts?
Well, if you asked me this morning, I would have said Frozen. That was out of all the musicals, and maybe because my kids are in elementary school and that's just where we're at right now, I would have picked Frozen to just run away with it. So I was kind of surprised Addams Family, just beat it out. So now, knowing that information, I think my heart says Annie, but I feel like Pippin's going to go. If I were to pick, I would pick Annie, but I feel like it might be Pippin.
All right, you heard it here first, people. All right, Laura, what are your predictions moving?
I was looking at this, and I think because there was such that strong reaction with Addams Family, I think the final 2 are going to come down to the last 2 shows that the high schoolers did. So I think it's going to come down to Your Good Man Charlie Brown versus the Addams Family, and I think Your Good Man Charlie Brown's going to take it just because I feel like more people are going to know it. If I were to say that there was going to be like something that you didn't even suspect coming in there, maybe like a Seussical could win out just because it's so universal and everyone has had their hand in it, from Seussical kids all the way up to the real deal Seussical.
You make a fair point, Laura, too, because what's really interesting about this tournament is the brackets were paired up based on chronological order, but some of our earliest shows are now some of our latest shows as well. So how that will play out, like, the first 2, Your Good Man Charlie Brown and Year Old Frog and Toad, were the first 2 musicals we did, but they were also now just done this past year. So we'll see how that plays out too, moving ahead. Good thoughts. All right, Tori, what are your predictions moving ahead?
I agree with Laura that Seussical might take it, just because, like, I'm looking at my weirdly detailed notes here. And Seussical and Frog and Toad were both produced in Wolfpack history 3 times at like pretty spaced out intervals. Charlie Brown was actually would have been about 13 years apart. Sarah, you vintage star, you.
Yes, OG Lucy right here, guys.
Yeah, OG. So I agree with Laura on that front that more people are likely to have experienced it. But I would say that it's like pretty interesting to see like the shows that have actually been done in the black box more recently and sort of had that chance to innovate and like redefine what some of the older and younger kids are able to do. And I would say that like my dream would be that Into the Woods wins. But I think the reality would probably be one of like the larger shows, like maybe Addams Family or maybe even Children of Eden or Pippin. Like I basically just cover the whole board because I want everyone.
That's fair. They're all winners. Thanks, Tori.
Smart, Tori.
All right, Tim, round us out here. What are your thoughts moving ahead?
Okay, I'm not a betting man, but I did fill out this bracket on my own. I'll tell you where it ended up for me. My final 2, it was Seussical against Children of Eden, and that was a truly tough choice for me. Both represent probably my favorite shows from those age groups. So, they both represented to me some of the most fun I had at Wolfpack, some of the most meaningful experiences I had at Wolfpack. I think they're some of the strongest written pieces that we have on this list. So I can see a final 2 of being Seussical and Children of Eden. I did choose Children of Eden, so that's where my heart lies. But if there was an upset to be had, I can really see Into the Woods going all the way. We just had the Sondheim tribute last night. Everyone's feeling very nostalgic for Stephen Sondheim, so that's my dark horse.
That's very fair. Well, this tournament so far has been a nail biter. We have not seen everything coming that has really, really shown itself thus far. So I will be fascinated to see what round 2 brings. Who knows? Maybe we'll meet again after things play out a little bit further and see where we end up. So I just want to take a moment to thank our expert panelists here for their time. It was a very illuminating evening. So we thank you very much.
And thank you for doing this because
thank you, sir.
March Madness or other things, like this is better than March Madness.
It's musical madness.
Madness. Like
Yeah,
I saw it and I'm so excited.
Like, do I understand sports now? Is that what this means?
Yes.
No, Tim. It's
Is this sports?
And
Sort of.
yeah, you love theater real hard.
Got it. Well, we've got 4 people who definitely know their way around a musical, so thank you so much for joining us tonight.
Thank
All
you.
right, thank you for having us, Sarah.
Thank you for joining us today on this Wolf PAC Sports Center recap. Round 2 voting starts tomorrow, so get ready, and we'll look forward to visiting with you again soon.